There is a strange moment that happens in conversations. Someone asks you for something, your time, your help, your presence. And before you even decide what you truly want to say, you are already explaining yourself. You start with a simple word, no. But the sentence does not stop there. It keeps growing. You explain your schedule. You explain your stress. You explain that you wish things were different. You explain that you would help if you could. And sometimes, by the time the explanation ends, the no has quietly disappeared. If that feels familiar, there is a reason. Because the habit of over-explaining is not really about politeness. It is about something much deeper, something most people do automatically without realizing it. And once you see what is actually happening in your mind, the way you say no will never feel the same again. But to understand it, notice something subtle. Imagine someone messages you, "Can you help me tonight?" You read the message. Your day has been long. Your mind is tired. You want the evening to yourself. Your instinct is immediate. No, but you do not write that. Instead, your mind begins negotiating with itself. Maybe they will feel bad. Maybe they will think you are selfish. Maybe it will only take a little time. So you reply, "Hey, I would love to help, but today has been really busy and I still need to finish some things, and I have to wake up early tomorrow." The message feels polite, reasonable, considerate. But look closely. You were not just saying no. You were defending your right to say no. And that small difference reveals something important about how the mind works. Because when someone over-explains a simple boundary, the explanation is usually not for the other person. It is for themselves. The mind is trying to prevent a problem that has not even happened yet. A possible disappointment, a possible misunderstanding, a possible judgment. So it prepares a defense in advance. This habit is incredibly common, but it does not appear randomly. Most people learn it slowly over many years, often in environments where their decisions were constantly questioned. "Why did you do that? That's not a good enough reason. Explain yourself." Over time, something subtle happens. You stop waiting for someone to question you. You start questioning yourself first, and the brain becomes very good at anticipating disapproval. So every boundary begins to feel like something that must be justified, even when no one asked for an explanation. But here is the part many people never notice. Over-explaining does something strange to conversations. It weakens the boundary you were trying to set. Because explanations invite negotiation. Imagine two responses to the same request. One person replies, "I can't tonight." That is the entire sentence. Another person replies, "I can't tonight because I had a long day and still need to finish some work." Now the conversation changes. "Oh, it won't take long. You can finish your work later. Just 20 minutes. The moment reasons appear, people naturally start trying to solve them. Not because they want to pressure you, but because that is how conversations work. Reasons are problems, and people try to fix problems. Which means the focus quietly shifts. It is no longer about your boundary. It becomes about whether your reasons are strong enough. And suddenly you find yourself explaining more, trying to prove your no. But here is the deeper truth. Most confident communicators eventually discover healthy boundaries rarely need long explanations, not because your reasons are unimportant, but because your decision is already enough. Understanding this logically is easy. Feeling comfortable with it is harder, because when explanations disappear, something uncomfortable appears instead. Silence. A simple no leaves space in the conversation, and in that silence the mind begins to worry. Are they disappointed? Did that sound rude? Should I say more? For people who are used to smoothing every interaction with explanations, that silence can feel almost unbearable, so they fill it. More words, more reassurance, more justifications. But something surprising happens when the explanation disappears. Most conversations actually become easier. clearer, shorter, not because people suddenly love hearing no, but because the boundary becomes unmistakable. Clarity has a quiet authority. Yet there is another psychological layer. Underneath this habit, one that many people only notice after years of repeating it. Over-explaining is often connected to approval, not dramatic approval, just the quiet desire to be seen as reasonable, kind, helpful. Look closely at most explanations, and you will notice something. They are not just reasons. They are signals. I wish I could help. I feel bad. Saying this. I hope you understand. These sentences protect an image. They say, I am still a good person, even though I said no. And that is where things become emotionally complicated. Because many people secretly believe that if they stop explaining, they might start looking selfish. But kindness and explanation are not the same thing. Kindness is about intention. Explanation is about permission. One respects others, the other asks to be accepted. Once people begin noticing this difference, something shifts inside them. They realize a boundary does not erase kindness. It simply defines limits, and limits are necessary for any stable life. Think about what happens when someone never sets clear boundaries. They agree to things they do not want. They accept commitments they regret. They give time they cannot afford. At first, everything looks polite, helpful, generous. But over time, something else begins to grow. Frustration, exhaustion, quiet resentment, not toward others, toward themselves. Because every yes that should have been a no slowly drains energy, and eventually the mind begins to push back, sometimes through irritation, sometimes through withdrawal, sometimes through burnout. Ironically, the person who over-explains to keep everyone comfortable often becomes the most emotionally exhausted person in the room. But when someone learns to say no clearly, something different happens. Their yes becomes meaningful because it is real, not forced, not negotiated, chosen, and people around them slowly begin to notice that difference. There is another small shift that happens when someone stops over-explaining. Their confidence changes, not loud confidence, not aggressive confidence, just calm clarity. Sentences become shorter. I can't make it. I'm not available. I won't be able to help with that. No tension, no apology hidden inside the words, just information. And that calm simplicity sends a message. This boundary is real, not fragile, not open for debate, just real. Of course, empathy can still exist inside that clarity. You can acknowledge someone's request without dissolving your boundary. I understand why you asked. I still can't do it. A sentence like that carries both respect and firmness. And the interesting part is that most people respond better to this clarity than to long explanations. Because long explanations often create confusion. They sound uncertain, almost like you might change your mind. But clear boundaries sound different. They sound settled. Still, changing this habit takes practice. The urge to explain will appear again and again. Right after you say no, your mind will whisper, add one more sentence. Just in case. Just to make it smoother. But if you pause in that moment, you might notice something surprising. That extra sentence is rarely for the other person. It is for the anxious part of your own mind. The part that fears being misunderstood. The part that wants control over how others see you. But here is something quietly powerful to remember. You cannot fully control how people interpret your boundaries. Even the best explanation cannot guarantee approval. So trying to manage every possible reaction becomes exhausting and eventually unnecessary, because the real shift happens when a new belief slowly replaces the old one. A simple internal sentence. My decision does not need a defense. At first, that sentence may feel uncomfortable, almost rebellious. But over time, it becomes liberating because life becomes simpler. Requests appear. You consider them. You answer honestly, yes or no. And the sentence ends there. No courtroom, no defense, just clarity. Which brings us back to the beginning. That moment when someone asks for something and your mind instantly begins preparing explanations. Now you can see what is hard actually happening. Your brain is trying to protect you from a reaction that might never come, and once you notice that reflex, you gain something powerful. Choice. You can still explain if you want, but you no longer have to. And sometimes, the most confident response in a conversation is also the shortest. No. Or something just as simple. I can't. 2 words. Enough. If parts of this felt familiar, it may mean you recognized a quiet pattern in your own conversations, not a flaw, just a habit thoughtful people often develop. And if these kinds of psychological patterns interest you, you may find more insights like this here. Only subscribe if these reflections genuinely resonate with you, because there are many subtle human behaviors like this, hiding in the ordinary conversations we have every day.